listening to Exposure. It is XFM. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Editors with Smokers Outside the Hospital Doors from the last album, An End Has a Start. The last #1 album, I should say, from 2007. And 2009, they are back. In This Light and On This Evening is the title of the new album, out this week. And In This Light and On This Evening, I have two of the band here. Hello, Tom. Hello, Ed.
Hello.
Welcome back to XFM. It's good to see you. It seems like ages and ages.
About 2 years, I think.
It has probably been about 2 years, and a lot's been going on in your lives.
Of course.
Tom, you've become a father. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
How old is your offspring now?
He's pretty much 16 months, something like that.
Wow. Wow. Ed, you moving in directions like that at all?
Well, you're getting married, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm getting married.
Oh, wow.
I've been wound up by my sound engineer, something chronic, that when that's happened, there's only one route that I'm going to go down.
Well, that is true, actually. So when's the wedding? In 2010?
Yeah, in May. I had to ring up our booking agent to check there wasn't any major festivals going on around that time as well. So
Right.
Yeah.
Plan it around that. Yeah.
Excellent. So there's no clash?
Well, not at the moment. I mean, I'm sure we'll get away with it.
You're not doing as I think it was Barry Hyde from the Futureheads got married, and then the next day he went and played Tea in the Park, something like that.
Right. I mean, it's a decent honeymoon. Tea in the Park could be quite a good party.
It's good if you
just take the reception there. Actually, it'd be a lot cheaper.
That would be good. It would be good.
Backstage free beer as well, aren't they?
Yeah, really good.
That's good planning.
Yeah.
I can see what you're saying. Maybe move the wedding a bit later then, into the summer.
A bit further north.
I'll get onto it. Thanks, John.
But congratulations for the future.
Cheers,
But you're here for one reason, because of course the new album is out. You're going to talk us through the whole of the new record, and in many ways this is a departure for Editors. Sound-wise, it sounds quite a different kind of thing to what you've done before.
Yeah.
It retains obviously some trademark things. So when did you start thinking about recording this record?
I guess
writing
as soon as we finished touring the last record, really. We'd already done a bit of writing. There was a song that we started playing festivals 2008 time, because we finished touring at the end of that period, and there was a song that we were playing then that was a bit more guitar led, I guess, and we felt like we almost, like, I don't know, little bits of a routine started to come into our writing. We felt we had a formula that we were adhering to. It felt like we were ripping ourselves off a little way. So the song was good, it was fine, it was very good, I think, but it didn't feel right. So we knew very early on that we had to try and do something drastically different to start with, to try and put the record that we eventually were going to release into to be a different sounding Editors album.
Right, so you felt that it was almost as if you had such a strong sound, you had the blueprint, and then you'd make 2 albums worth of material in that kind of vein, and we're just going to repeat ourselves. Yeah,
it just felt a bit like, like I said, routine was creeping in, and we didn't want to. It's like I don't think this is it's still Editors, but the guitars are in the background and other things are in the foreground. And once people see that and, I don't know, understand that, I think it's still very much our band. But, on first listen, it will surprise some people.
Yeah.
I kind of get the feeling as well, if we tried to go about recording the record in the way we maybe did the last one, I don't think we'd be standing here today with a record that's going to be released on Monday. I think, we'd be in serious trouble. We'd be throwing it away and starting again.
Why is that? Because that was such
you know, if you do get very complacent, you start repeating yourself, it just bogs you down, and I don't think we'd have been proud enough to release a record.
It was such a creative time, this record, compared to any record we've ever made, really. And I don't know, we've written about 20 songs, which is a lot for us to go into a record, to go to recording an album to have, and then because we were kind of trying new things, we weren't experimenting, we were kind of, I wouldn't say it's an experimental album, it was just us adventuring, I guess, in different sounds and different ways of making these songs come to life, and it was really inspiring, it was really creative, and it felt like when we were in a band to start with, when you first kind of playing those songs and you playing them, that excitement of being a band in a room is there, and that's an amazing thing. And with the second record, I'm very proud of it, and there are lots of very important Editor songs on it, like the one you just played, but we had to piece it together in the studio. We only wrote 12 songs, we did it bit by bit, we weren't functioning creatively as well as we have been or are now, so it's hard work looking back on it now.
Interesting. And so, how did you go about challenging yourself for this record then? I mean, how does an editor's song get written? Does it start with you, Tom?
It starts with me, recording demos at home on a piano, acoustic guitar, or some synthesizers crept into the early stages of writing with these songs too. And I'd started doing that as soon as we finished touring in 2008, and that's just send them out to the band. And as the weeks go by, the songs kind of pile up. And we don't live in the same town, in the same house, in the same country anymore, really. Once I've sent them out to the band, we all attack them individually, and, ideas start to come in people's heads. So I remember Chris started sending demos back. Rather than guitar melodies leading his ideas, he'd written on a synthesizer, and straight away it was like, wow, it was unexpected. It's not something we really talked about in any great depth. We knew we had to shake it up a bit. We didn't know exactly how we were going to do it. And it kind of led from there, really.
So that's interesting. Chris and Russell now live in New York, am I right?
Yeah, they did then. Russell's actually moved back to Birmingham, but yeah.
Right, okay, yeah. So at the time, they were across the Atlantic. Ed was in Birmingham, you were in London, Tom.
Yeah.
So this editor's music whizzing about the world. And do you think it relies on gear? Had Chris gone on a shopping spree and bought some synthesizers? Or
yeah, obviously you do have to get tools to find new ways of expressing yourself on, but I guess there's an element of that. But it wasn't like loads of gear; it was just something else to do.
He just felt very excited with sort of just a new approach to looking at the way he was writing, and whether that was on a keyboard or those stupid things that he uses on Light Treasure, the Omnichord, and something like that. Something different and something that really got his imagination sparking. And for Chris, that's so important, And
what are you saying about Chris? Short attention span?
Short attention span. It's a possibility, Tom.
Shorter than some people.
Don't put words into my mouth, but yeah, totally.
Interesting. Interband, rivalry or whatever you want to call it.
But making music should be fun, It was about trying to get that back a bit.
Yeah. And I guess you were kind of exploring again. So you were surprised when he sent you back these things with parts that you wouldn't have expected.
Well, melodically, I recognised it. I understand the way I still, I kind of get the way his brain works in that kind of sense. But it was like, wow, that's a totally different spin on it, and straight away, like the songs had this really. We've talked about kind of sci-fi references with this album, things like Blade Runner and the Terminator theme, but they had that kind of aesthetic, a really kind of barren, kind of futuristic feel to them, and I was like, wow. It was a really interesting place for our songs to start to go, and as we started to move forward, you started to understand where this album was going to go, because we didn't know exactly what we were aiming for. This wasn't calculated in any way, because we didn't know what we were aiming to get. It was just some kind of voyage of discovery, I guess.
No, this has been exciting. So when did you decide that these songs were nearing some kind of completion in terms of how they were sounding and how they were being written, that you should all four meet again and get in a room together?
We sort of went into a studio in South London for a couple of weeks and sort of did it was quite a glamorous demo session. We had a nice studio as a band, and from that, I think probably the first thing that I realised was the song "In This Light and On This Evening." That first time you hear that synth, it's right down the middle. It's so plain to see, and it kind of really got me really excited about that there was a direction to this record we can go in. And we sort of finished that song off, and the demo we made isn't a million miles away from what's actually ended up on the record.
Isn't it?
Yeah, basically, just been fine-tuned a little bit. So I think then we realised we were kind of onto something that really was getting us excited, and we can build on. And so then we started talking about producers, and I think immediately, to my mind, and to many of us, whoever is involved in our band, we talked about Flood, and it's right.
Had you worked with Flood before?
No,
not at all. Really? Wow. I kind of assumed that you had, just because he seems to have been involved in records in the past that I would have seen as reference points for you.
Well, he did you look at his list of records he's made. He did feel like the most obvious choice in the world. That's not necessarily a good thing, but that world where kind of dark indie music meets dark electronic kind of rock music, I guess it's what he kind of made, really. So yeah, I mean, he was on the top of my list, and I think other members. There was, again, going back to Chris. Chris was a little bit worried about, I guess, the history behind the fact he had so much history behind him. I think he wanted to work with someone a bit younger. So I met him. He heard some of the demos, some of the ones we'd done as a band, some of the ones I'd done on my own, and he loved them. He loved some of them especially. And then when he met us in one of our latter rehearsals, talked about how we'd make the record. Everyone was just like, "This is the right guy for the job." And that's when it really clicked. And you just sit there in rehearsals as we started going through all the ideas and formulating how these, bare bones of songs that I'd made were going to become editor songs. And he was involved in that process then, because the record we got into the studios was all recorded live. We needed to do a lot of work in rehearsals because you need to know what you're going to do.
Well, you need to know which direction the song goes.
It sounds obvious, but lots of records aren't made that way.
Right. Yeah. So. The studio in South London where you started demoing, when was that? Was that still in 2008, or was that?
It was very late 2008. I think it was November. It was getting really cold, and
it was dark, wasn't it?
Yeah, they hold us up in a sort of weird apartment block nearby, and it was.
Someone tried to mug Russell, didn't they? On that
that was pretty awful. But he's a big guy.
He saw them off.
Wow.
And it was Ben Hillier's studio down in South London, who also mixed most of the record along with Chenzo Townsend. So he was involved from a very early point, just because we were using his gear.
Right.
And kind of
he was in on rehearsals as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And so the rehearsals were in the same studio, this demo?
No, this was a little bit after. This was kind of, so we'd had Christmas off basically to go away, and I'd do more writing, and we'd live with the demos. And I think at that point we were really thinking hard about producers. Then early in 2009, I sat down, met Flood, and then I guess, a few weeks later we did first rehearsals again, and he came in with those.
Right.
I can't remember when we started recording. We did it very quickly, the actual album, once we started. It was about 7-8 weeks.
It was March. It was mid-March. But, with Flood getting involved, it was quite lucky, because he's always got big projects on, He's a big producer, and he was doing 30 Seconds to Mars, believe it or not.
Is it From Mars or doesn't matter?
Whichever.
Yeah.
the later one.
I think it's 2, isn't it? I don't know.
And so he was kind of coming off the back of that
Mission from Mars.
And but it kind of worked out so well. We had this opportunity to go in with him, and we weren't gonna give that up for anyone. And luckily we could all fit it in, and it worked out incredibly well. And we worked very fluidly together and did it really quickly.
And so how long did you spend rehearsing the songs before you went in to record them?
Quite a lot, really. We do like week periods, or fortnight periods, actually. So, I guess in total a month or 2 months of rehearsals. Right. The songs going around them, and then I guess half of that Flood was involved in, the latter half. And
was that all 20 of the songs that you wrote?
Yeah, we didn't have time to do them all.
Right.
A lot of them, we worked through most of them, and because there was the thing about our band that I thought we never quite got on record is the live intensity or energy or whatever that thing is that bands have when they play live. And for whatever reason, all throughout our career, people have responded very well to our band as a live band. So a lot of people say we're better on stage than we are actually on a CD. And I don't know, I really wanted with this album to kind of get closer to that energy that we have as a band in a room or on a stage and record that. But at the same time, knowing we were making a more electronic record, there's a problem there, because these things are generally programmed, and these instruments are not like guitars. You don't strap them on and play them like it's not as physical, I guess. It's not as, you can't, will the emotion out of it with your body or whatever. So, but Flood made us realise that you can play these things live, and we can work in a room, we can tune it up really loud, and we can have a PA in the studio and go about it that way. But we did need to know, how, the first 4 elements of each song, or whatever, the rhythms that, all the first 4 elements that make up the song, how they were going to go, so we could record them at the same time. So it did take quite a bit of rehearsals.
And it does work, though, because I got to see you on TV the other week, on Later. I haven't seen you play these songs live in a venue, but I saw them on Later and thought it was fantastic, and it was as exciting as any other live performance you've given, and obviously by that I mean it's up there, and it was really, really exciting, and it really conveyed the way that you had made the record. I thought, seeing you play the songs in that way, it was really exciting.
Well, we've been asked a lot, people have said that it must have been far more difficult to translate this record live than possibly our last record. The matter of fact is, there were so many layers on An End as a Start. We had to be really specific in pulling the pieces out that mattered to making it work live. So it was very difficult. But as we say, we recorded essentially all of the songs on this record as live. So just to translate them live, it's far easier actually. It's far more natural.
Because it's almost quite playful as well in the record. All the different things that we're going through, and hopefully that comes off on stage as well, as we different kind of instruments around the stage that we going over to play, and there was a playful edge to it too.
Yeah. And so when did you have the record finished then?
We started. When did we start? March.
Yeah, March.
Wow. Or May.
It was May.
Yeah.
It was definitely May. Yeah.
And then it needed to be mixed and all that kind of stuff. So
we've been living with it for a while now. We had it all over the summer because apparently you can't release records in the summer.
The record company said.
Yeah. So
But that's good. I mean, it kind of allows a gestation period.
Well, it's good because it meant we could get it out to people, because journalists and people like that. Cause I think it's a grower of an album. It's an album that I hope people will live with for a while, and because on first listen, I think I don't know. It's shocking for some people, so I'm good. I'm glad that it's got out to people. So the positive reviews that we've had have really picked up on. I think the fact that they've had it for a while and live with it, it's come across. We're a band that really splits opinions. The bad ones are always really they feel hurt by the record. They really hate it, but the good ones really love it. It's really interesting.
It is interesting. It'll be interesting to see what people make of it tonight. Editors, In This Light, and on this evening on Exposure XFM tonight, we're playing you the whole of it with Tom and Ed talking us through it track by track, and the opening number is on the way next. Do not go away. It is Editors on Exposure XFM, In This Light, and on this evening, the title track of the brand new album out this week, getting the Exposure album playback treatment tonight, and that is also the first of the 9 songs that you're going to hear tonight on XFM. And Tom and Ed are here to talk us through it track by track. Ed, you were just telling us that when you first started rehearsing this track, that it showed a real indication of the possibilities for the third Editors album, a new direction, a really exciting new frontier to conquer for the band. I love the way it kind of builds up slowly, and then the drums pound in kind of halfway through the song.
I love the bit with the drums coming in.
That's Ed's bit.
My bit. Precious about that. I was just thinking, actually, that kind of it's got a certain relation to the first song of the first Streets record. What's it called? Turn the Page. The kind of way it swells and really introduces you to the what might be on the rest of the record. I think there's quite a lot of what's on the record in that tune, and it's I think it's a perfect introduction actually.
I mean, a lot of the album seems to be about conjuring up a certain kind of mood, or seems to be related to nighttime a lot. It seems to be related to weather a lot, usually harsh conditions with rain coming down on you, and also about place, and particularly kind of cities. And obviously in this song, you mentioned London. So is it a love-hate relationship with London that you've got, Tom?
I guess so. I don't have a fixed opinion on the place. I guess some days you, like with that song, you look at the place and you're your breath's taken away by the beauty of the place, and that was inspired by a particular moment like that. And the view of the skyline that I see most days when I'm at home, I take for granted, I guess. And one day it was like you said, it was about to rain. It was that weird kind of nighttime, daytime part of the day, just before nighttime, and all those cliched things basically. And it just I went home and it took my breath away, and I wrote those words. There's only about 10 words in that song, and it's even though it's kind of dark and bleak, it is inspired by a beautiful moment, I guess. But London does cast a shadow over the whole album to me. We've always been an urban kind of sounding band. We always liked the imagery and romance of cities in the nighttime, and I guess a visual thing, and also the people just going about their lives in that kind of environment is an inspiring thing, or an interesting thing to explore creatively as well. So that's something that's always been there with our band, but this record feels even more so like that. It feels like it's kind of amplified that kind of inspiration, I guess. And London, to me, a lot of the lyrics on the record are more observational rather than personal, as they've been on previous records, and it feels like the playground to where these little characters are kind of their stories are being told, I guess.
Right, so are you being inspired by things you see, and do you invent storylines then for people around you?
Absolutely, you get carried away and your imagination runs away. Character, we'll get onto those songs later, but yeah, definitely, your mind wanders, but it's inspired by people here and there. But going back, talking about kind of a love-hate thing, I mean, that's I guess a love moment for London, and things like The Boxer is kind of a bit more violent and a bit more of a scary place, which it is too.
Yeah, true. Bricks and Mortar is the next song. I love the kind of squeaky sounds that you've got in here.
That was Sooty.
Yeah. Excellent. There's in quite a few of the songs you've got, it's almost as if the keys of the keyboards are kind of squeaking, and obviously they're not, but it has a really tactile feel to a lot of the things, and definitely in this one it has that kind of pulsing bass line. How did Bricks and Mortar come about?
It was just about the groove and trying to get. It's kind of relentless in its approach. It was one of the songs that the groove and the feeling of us playing it live led where the song would go, rather than trying to adhere to verse, chorus, now's a verse, now's a middle eight. The song told us what should happen, and because it felt kind of, I don't know, so exciting and so good when we were playing that kind of that groove in the moment of that song. And it was one of those ones that you record late at night in the studio, the lights are down low, and you're just trying to capture the best performance. We did use a lot of kind of analog gear, and hopefully gear with character that you might be referring to in the kind of nature of some of the sounds. Lots of old kind of sequences bubbling away in the background to this song, that hopefully give the kind of, you have this kind of live performance as the central thing, the kind of backbone. There's a few textures kind of bubbling away in the background that make the whole thing a bit more interesting.
And lyrically, what were you?
Lyrically, it's a bit confused. There's definitely the first three songs have a presence of him upstairs. Idea, a religion kind of creep into the first three songs. I don't know. I just find it an interesting thing to sing about. Really, my opinion on it's pretty clear, I think, but.
You seem to often be talking to people who maybe have a faith or are looking for a faith, and you kind of question their position.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't know. Religion's the idea of faith is amazing, and I'm extremely jealous of people that find comfort in that. I guess in faith in whatever God. I think that's an amazing thing, but I also at the same time find the amount of power that people wield in the name of their God, or that's troubling, and the amount of trouble that it's caused as well. So the whole rock and roll and religion are linked directly, aren't they? They've always been together. So
I guess they have been. I mean, if Jerry Lee pounding away his keyboard, wants to be a preacher but can't resist the temptation. It's there in one person.
I guess going back to kind of like the kind of gospel nature of some of the songs as well, that the kind of communal singing, or a lot of the band were singing and layering vocals in a lot of these songs. They have that kind of gospel feeling to them too. I think there's a power in that, in the kind of those types of moments. It's the kind of when your hairs on the back of your neck go up in those kind of like choral, almost religious moments, aren't they? You don't know how to describe them, but they're definitely religious. So.
Interesting. So it's all kind of in here in this mix.
This song, to be honest, is confused a little bit. It's, I'm not totally sure.
That's probably quite good though, Tom, because too often the songwriter or the vocalist is, say, Bruce style, kind of offering answers when there aren't necessarily any answers. So I think it's good to open up to confusion, and we'll see it in this song. Bricks and Mortar, Editors, on Exposure, XFM. You're listening to Exposure. It is XFM. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Editors with Papillon, the first single from the brand new album, In This Light and On This Evening, which has just come out this week, and it's getting the Exposure album playback treatment tonight with Tom and Ed from the band talking us through it track by track. Papillon was everybody's first taste, I guess, of this record, and it had many of the trademark characteristics of Editors, but some others that were kind of new. How did you choose the first single? Did you think that this was a good one that straddled both past and present? I mean,
it would be lying to say that wasn't sort of in our heads. I mean, it's definitely the most instant track off the album, and what we wanted to do was kind of put something out that people that were familiar with Tom's voice or something about our melodies could sort of, you know, if they heard it wherever they were, on a train or in the car or something, they kind of knew it was us, and we wanted to interest them into looking at our album. You know, we've produced a record that we think is our best work as a body of work. You know, it deserves to be listened to as a record in full, and hopefully people, you know, hear it and kind of feel inspired to come and have a listen, really get involved in the record a little bit deeper.
So a little kind of a taster. Papillon, is this a direct reference to Papillon as played by Steve McQueen in the film, of the book, of the biography?
Exactly.
Which bit were you picking up on? The biography, the real life character, or the film?
Well, I mean, I've never read the book, but I guess, I mean, it all stems from that. I mean, you know, the Frenchman, I guess, I can't remember his exact name, I always forget his name, but I remember watching the film with my dad quite a lot when I was a kid, and the song touches on escape, and it just came rushing back, I guess, when I was writing. And I mean, filmic influences or references, I think, litter this album. It's quite a cinematic thing as a listen, but, you know, there's a reference there to a film, and you know, we talk about Blade Runner and and those type of things. I mean, images have influenced the album as much as any other music, I think.
Interesting. So when you talk about Blade Runner and The Terminator, it wasn't as if you heard the music in the film as you were watching it and went and bought the soundtrack and worked out how they composed those soundtracks. Was it Vangelis who did Blade Runner?
Blade Runner, yeah, it was Vangelis. Not so much that. I mean, I think the reality is that the keyboards that we use, I think it's pretty much a Juno 106, that when they, you know, developed those late 70s, early 80s, that was the keyboard that they were using around that time, but they've never really bettered them. You know, they're still what people use now for that type of thing, and they're great things. And, I mean, we like them as well, but it wasn't directly because of those soundtracks. But when our melodies, I don't know, when we started to work, it was reminding me in feel of those films, and the way those films, their soundtracks, and the way those films look, how that kind of made me feel. I guess just the aesthetic of those pieces, that kind of vision of the future from that period of time it's pretty amazing, really. You watch Blade Runner, it's a beautiful thing. So that was a big influence.
I think as a sort of result of us playing in a room together as well for the first time in 4 years in a recording environment, when we were going through these songs, you were getting far more emotionally involved, and I think all of us were kind of having pictures in our heads. They weren't necessarily the same stories, but there was a scene. There was a scene that we were creating in our own imagination, and that you just feed off that. And I think that was a really interesting way of putting something different into the music.
And then when we really thought about it, it was quite funny because we were trying to play these, machines rather than traditional acoustic guitars, so keyboards and sequencers and synthesizers, and I don't know, in a lot of ways we were kind of trying to humanize these machines and try and make them have feel and make them sound not robotic, but have a bit more emotional depth to the recording. So the Terminator thing was going on there as well, man versus machine. Our imaginations kind of got carried away.
But I think you've definitely succeeded in making these machines sound human, because they don't really sound like machines.
We were terrified of the... One thing I was scared of was going, before we'd started, is if we make an electronic record, would it be sounding too plastic or too fake or cheesy, I guess, and lack of soul or all those things. And I'd be terrified about that, to be honest, because that would be horrible. But as we started to go on the journey and write and record, it kind of, because we were playing it live, because of the sounds we were choosing, it didn't feel like that. It felt, I don't know, like it had soul. It felt grimy and grubby and dirty and scary, I guess.
And Papillon's an interesting one as well, because when we were creating that, obviously you've got that kind of mesmerising keyboard loop that goes, it's just incessant, it goes through the whole thing. And we kind of thought, right, okay, that's very rigid. Let's stick just a drum machine in there. Let's just put it, off a computer straight in, see how it sounds. And it was so weird. The feel to it just wasn't right. You just had it on. You weren't bothered. By after a minute, you were so tired of it. And it's incredible, just that slight feel, just to playing, a live instrument beyond, the way it moves with something that's just so regimented is it changes it so much beyond recognition. So, that was once we realised that, the track really took some life.
And it's interesting that with an end as a start, you talk about all the different layers that you put into that record, and yet there seem to be so many different layers within each track for this, because each time I listen to it, I hear something else. I mean, it might, in some instance, just be, oh, there is actually guitar on this.
It's a little more subtle with this
but it's very, very subtle. But in Papillon, there's that vocal kind of that comes in, but only very quickly and only for a short spell.
Well, I mean, the whole song for us was about, as a lot of, I guess, dance music is, was about kind of tension, I guess some kind of suspense and a build and then release. And it was just about that, I guess, some kind of little roller coaster ride of a tune. And that kind of was the tension, it was the build, and then bang, you get the payoff, as we called it.
And I mean, it seems a lot of the melody lines played by the keyboards sound very vocal to me. They sound as if, you know, somebody had hummed them and then tried to replicate them using the keys. You know, and in that gives another voice to the instrumentation in a way.
I mean, not so much in this. I mean, the R's, I guess, are an old.
But in some of the other.
But to be honest, in nearly every song, the rest of the band is singing, which they've never really done before on an editor's album. But what we do with those sounds, some of them we use them naturally, but most of them were kind of treated and used as kind of weird sounds and backdrops to whichever part of the song they were singing, a guitar riff or a keyboard riff. So there is a lot of that. There's a lot of kind of ghostly quality to a lot of the vocals, and it's just like a different atmosphere across the back of the record.
No, it's great. It adds an extra richness to it all.
It's funny watching them sing anyway.
Excellent.
Yeah, doing the Live Aid. Hand on head.
You Don't Know Love is the next song, and the keyboards are like strings, or a string section in this, are they? Or
there's an old sample,
right.
Over one of the riffs, You mean that bit? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but that kind of adds another human dimension to it. But what's this one all about? You Don't Know Love.
This was I guess a character-led song. Someone again, there's not that many words in this song, but someone grown tired of the pursuit of love and what that's done to them, and some character I've imagined. And again, in my head, they're kind of, I don't know, running around the streets of London, running around Highgate Cemetery or somewhere like that. And that's what this song's about.
Right, wow, interesting. We're picturing the scene now. Late at night, running through cemeteries.
Yeah.
You Don't Know Love. Editors, Exposure, XFM. It is Editors, the big exit from the brand new album In This Light, and on this evening, getting the Exposure album playback treatment tonight. That's track 5. Tom and Ed are here, talking us through it track by track. I'm John Kennedy. What can you tell us about the big exit? I've been trying to work out what bands you might have listened to. I mean, you've mentioned soundtracks, you mentioned Terminator and Blade Runner, and obviously with Flood involved, we think of Depeche Mode, and I think in many ways Depeche are a good kind of reference point for this, but particularly with the big exit, I thought of a band called Adult. I don't know whether you've come across Adult.
No.
They're this really quite, they're a duo from, I'm trying to remember, they're from somewhere like Chicago. They're quite northern, North America, and they present quite a kind of cold music, and the lyrics are always really dark, darker than yours, Tom, even.
Damn
and they're male-female. They're worth checking out. They're really, really good.
What period is this?
Well, they're still around. I don't know when their last record was out, but they've kind of have released at one point. They seem to be tied in slightly to the electro thing, but they weren't really like an electro dance outfit. No, they're really, really good, and they haven't played that much over here, but they have done an Exposure live gig, as you did at the Barfly. So the female singer and a guy who plays the instrument, so she kind of struts around on stage. It's kind of a much simpler thing, but it's even though it's quite cold, it still has a quite a human quality to it. But so you haven't necessarily researched electronic music to get to the...
Not in any greater depth than our kind of record collections ever have been. You know, we've always listened to different types of music, and always been fans of things like Depeche Mode or New Order, or things like Cabaret Voltaire. But I don't know, things like some of Iggy Pop stuff as well. It's not like it's not a new thing. We just drew upon different influences, I guess, or different things that we would always listen to. Contemporary stuff that we found inspiring. We talked about things like TV on the Radio and LCD Sound System, especially LCD Sound System. I mean, that Sound of Silver is an amazing album, really amazing record. the way that kind of songs were kind of groove based and kind of went on for quite a while. And I don't know, the grooves kind of led the songs on that record was a big thing in our heads about approaching an album, even though it was our record. So.
But you weren't tempted to have a silver studio and dress in silver. Apparently he's working on his new album, and it's white is the colour, and they're all dressed in white.
Really?
And they've been recording in Los Angeles, and they've been going out en masse, so there's a kind of quite a big group of people playing on the record, and they're dressed in white, and they kind of descend on parties dressed in white. And
I'm very excited to hear it.
Yeah, I can't wait. Sounds amazing. But you didn't have anything like that, any kind of set rules about how you're going to do things?
Nah, you just go with your gut, you go with whatever feels natural, and there's no rules. Rules are boring in the studio.
On this song, we originally talked about getting a female in.
I kind of wrote it with a duet in mind, actually.
Interesting.
Didn't really happen, but I would like at some point to do a song with a female vocal on it. It didn't work out that way. But it is kind of a song about two people. Two people in love, but kind of feeling a bit disconnected with the normal world or whatever, and kind of their connection they have is what gives them the comfort. And when they leave the pub or the bar, wherever they are, dancing the streets of London, I guess. So it didn't end up being a duet, but I would have liked it to have been.
Interesting. Well, you could always rework it at some point.
Look, I mean, the chorus
maybe
would
Ed
work.
could wear a wig and pretend.
Got quite a high voice if you want.
I've worn a couple of wigs in my time. But I want to do that thing live. When they have the female vocalist just on a big screen, and kind of sort of playing along, out of sync.
Not there.
Excellent. Special guest star this evening.
Yeah, exactly.
And I really like the way it goes more up tempo in the second half of the song.
It's a really claustrophobic and kind of intense moment to the album. It's a really dark moment. This is the point in the record after You Don't Know Love where dropping into this song and then The Box, it's the kind of creepy corner, darker moment in the album, and to me it's one of the most interesting points on the album.
Right, so this is the dark side of the city, you could say.
The Box
is the next track, and it is more downbeat. And as you were saying earlier, there's a kind of violence to it.
Yeah.
Now, is the boxer a man, a physical boxer, or is it a dog?
It's just those people. Every hard man's got a hard dog these days.
It's true. You can't walk the streets without one.
No, I mean, it's just referring to, I guess, I don't know, just the kind of the violence or on a Friday or Saturday night. It doesn't have to be London, it could be any town. That kind of drinking or people going out leads to on some occasions, or it's just always there in the background, isn't it? And even though going out in itself is a very exciting and inspiring and great thing, and I love it, but just that kind of underbelly, sometimes it overspills into darkness. I guess violence is what that song's about. I mean, the boxer would be referring to the people distributing the violence, I guess.
Right. Excellent. And musically, how did you? I mean, if you had this idea in mind lyrically about the kind of thing that you'd written about, did that come from the music, or did you then try and find some music to reflect that kind of subject matter?
Well, we definitely created music to reflect that. There's I don't know, there's something you can't quite put your finger on. There's a swelling sort of weirdness in the background. It's really quite, it sort of really moves with the song, and there's bits where it opens up and you can kind of feel a bit more sort of anger, I guess. And what we tried to set up and played as a full band in the background and kind of bring that in on top of it. So kind of,
tension.
Exactly. And we really didn't want to make anything sound normal, like especially when we're sorting out what we're going to do to the drums. We had to treat them very carefully, so it didn't sound just like a regular drum kit. We wanted to sound something completely unworldly, like something you'd never hear on a pop record.
So how do you go about trying to find that sound?
A lot of experimenting. I mean, these are always the times where the rest of the band gets seriously bored. But,
to be fair, you didn't spend too long on it with this record.
No, I think it was having Flood there. He's got a bit of making weird sounds. He's kind of got a jump on everybody else. So we just experimented a little bit.
There's a lot of contact
mics and things, and just putting them on the skins rather than sort of miking them like like you should mic a drum kit, kind of getting a bit of, and
right.
Yeah.
So you don't change the drum kit. You stick with the same drum kit, but just kind of wire it up differently.
Make it sound horrible.
Yeah, you have like sometimes you put like contact mics like on the skin, like Ed said. Then that feed would be going out through an amplifier in the room next door, and that would be treated in a different way. So you're triggering different sounds as well as the kit. And
how do you replicate?
Interesting, because that song could be seen as, I guess, a bit of the ballad of the record, but that's fine itself. But we're just trying to make it a bit more interesting than just being the downbeat tempo. Like the way the song starts, it kind of evolves kind of very gradually, and like the blink 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 thing that's going over. I mean,
it's kind of pizzicato string.
Yeah, I mean, just to try and make it, I don't know, a bit like unusual.
And can you replicate these drum sounds?
Yeah. Well, that's
it's been hard work.
That's been probably what's taken up the most time since we've done the record. But it's just sampling really, and we've got a lot more equipment on stage nowadays, as you can imagine. Lots of samplers and keyboards that we've sort of programmed our own sounds into, and I've got sort of getting really technical and boring. Just got a few pads and a sampler around my kit, and I've kind of integrated it into kind of my normal live setup. So it's been fun that way. It's been fun trying to work out how to do it. It's been a bit frustrating at times, but we're on the eve of the tour now, and I think we're ready to go.
Ready to go. You'll be able to hear the results across the UK as I speak even. This is it, The Boxer though. Editors on Exposure XFM. It is Editors with The Boxer, track 6 from the brand new album In This Light. And on this evening, you're listening to Exposure. It's another Exposure album playback. I'm John Kennedy, and two of Editors are with me tonight, Tom and Ed, talking us through the album track by track. Like Treasure is the next song. And what can you tell us about this? The vocal melody, it could be an old Editors vocal melody, or is it kind of...
It's quite sweet. I think the bare bones of the song was quite a sweet thing. I mean, the lyrics aren't particularly sweet, but get to that in a bit. But I don't know, we didn't quite know. This is the one song, I think, on the album. We weren't really that sure how to approach it as we went in to record the album. So what we did is we actually played it a bit more like a traditional band, kind of quite loud in a room, bang along. Everyone just on their normal instruments, I think. Was Chris on the keyboard or guitar? I can't remember. The guitar, actually, yeah. We were playing it as a rock band. And we played it really loud, like that, but then we took the signal of it all and we kind of fed it through, what's it called, cross-fading? Cross-training? What's cross-training? We went for a jog.
So we side-shaded it. We added loads of effects. We treated it like a remix.
Yeah.
So we kind of, we'd done the original version in the studio, then we all moved into a control room, and by the special powers of the engineers who know how to do these things.
There's compressors and reverb units who kind of fed it all through, and it kind of looped on itself.
Yeah.
It became this really kind of like chocolatey, kind of wispy, dreamlike pop song. Even though it was a bit too dreamlike at that point, we had to go back to it and put certain things back on to bring the song out a bit more. It's never worked like that before. Just to try and make this kind of sweet song a bit less obvious, I guess.
Right. And did you work on trying different vocal styles for this record, because there's quite a diversity of...
Yeah, well, I definitely tried to do different things. I mean, as in keeping with the whole record, it was done in live takes rather than singing a line at a time. So what would happen with the vocal is you'd sing the song from start to finish, and you'd choose the best one, and that meant you'd have more of a performance, more like on stage. Looking back to that old thing. And there are a couple of songs on the record where I sing higher than I've sung before, and that's just, I guess, just trying to push yourself to somewhere you've not been before.
Is that easy though? I mean,
it's not initially. It took a while. It took the band and Flood to say it was good when I did it, for me to keep doing it. Otherwise I just think, shall I have done that? I used to sing. But just using your voice slightly differently, there's different ways.
Made the backing vocals a bit harder.
What, we had to go up there?
You had to go up that high as well.
Killer.
Tricky business. So lyrically, there's some intriguing words used, like digested, in Like Treasure. Do you think about the words in terms of how you're going to sing, why you're going to sing
words.
them? Because digested is not the usual kind of word you would hear in a song.
I like words that definitely do jump out at you like that. And I guess a striking image of a word that I guess you wouldn't expect is surprising in a song. I do like that, and some people don't, and that's fine. But I do like that element of lyric writing. So images that are strong, that maybe seem out of place in a song. That's good by me, definitely. This song and the next song are the two. They're not political songs, but they're kind of politically charged. There's like a lack of trust for the people in control of the world. They're aimed at people who are running our lives, I guess. And this is it sounds a bit like a love song, but it's more about revenge, I guess.
Right, so you've got to get the friends in high places so you can take revenge.
Exactly.
On the people who've messed it all up.
Quite.
Or something, right,
yeah.
Okay. This is it, Like Treasure, Editors on Exposure, XFM. It is Editors with Eat Raw Meat equals Blood Drool on Exposure, XFM. It is track 8 from the brand new album by Editors, In This Light and On This Evening, which In This Light and On This Evening has been getting the Exposure album playback treatment. We've got Tom and Ed talking us through it track by track, and that has to be one of the most interesting song titles of the year. Eat Raw Meat equals Blood Drool, which is obviously a good thing. I mean, where can we start? I mean, it's got a great groove, the track. And you related it to Like Treasure, and talking about gratuitous use of language. There's a gratuitous bit of swearing in there that you seem to enjoy and relish, I think.
It was a New Year's resolution of mine to swear more.
Swear more in song, or just in general?
I'm turning it down this evening, but out on the street I'm a filthy man.
Excellent, with your dog on a lead, looking for action. So, tell me more about Eat Raw Meat equals Blood Drool.
It's an image. There is a Banksy painting of the House of Parliament, and it depicts the MPs as monkeys in suits, kind of laughing manically. And it I just lingered with me slightly. And I guess it's my kind of, take on that image in some ways. I see like people in suits, instead of handing out the money, they're kind of handing out raw meat, chomping down on it like maniacs, and it's ridiculous. I'm not being serious, but it kind of made me laugh, and so there's humour in the lyrics, so that's kind of what it's about, really. Right, so the politicians kind of feeding the people. Pack of dogs, kind of, right. I don't know, yeah.
Because I came up, listening to it a few times, I came up with the various different scenarios, one of which was, it could be about, say, lions feeding after a kill and sharing out the meat, which I guess is a bit like the politicians.
Yeah, with money, absolutely.
Yeah, they've done the kill, and they're allowing us a bit of food.
Yeah, but keeping more for themselves.
Yes, well, fair enough. And Ed, when it comes to the lyrics and Tom's penchant for interesting language, is that ever questioned in the studio, or is it something that you
No, I mean, not at all. I mean, it was a surprise when this one came through by email. Just watching a DJ say on the radio is weird. It's a weird experience. I don't think they know quite how to take it. But
people love it or hate it, and I love the fact they love it or hate it. That makes
it's going to have to be a single. It's going to have to be a single. See how many people, how many DJs.
Well, that's right. I think it is going to have to be a single, because that gets me. You're right. Yeah, it's got a groove that we've never discovered before. It's something so punchy. And
poppy as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very poppy. I mean, the chorus, you can't get much more poppy in a Editor's track, I don't think so. Good choice for me. Hopefully it will be
interesting. So would it drop the blood drool bit?
I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what the rules are these days.
I don't think there are any rules, but it's kind of interesting to see what you know how often say really popular songs, they might have a really long song title, but they just get kind of.
We could just have ERM. Can we equals B?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Who knows? I think it may end up being the third single. I don't know yet. It's a bit early to say, but it'll. In Europe, they'll love it. They don't care about swearing or think that it'll be fine over there. But the band didn't really like it to start with. It wasn't that they didn't like it. It was just on the lower end of the priorities of recording.
The actual song, regardless of the title.
Yeah, right, I don't do the title. We
were very short-sighted. I mean, all of us. Tom's not just saying it was just us three that was against it, really. I think we all didn't like the way it was presented, first of all. And we kind of, we all thought there were stronger songs. But Flood and Ben Hillier came into the rehearsal room and they said, look, you've really got to put any demos and all preconceptions you've got about the song behind you just listen to the tune, you know, listen to the melody, forget everything else that's underneath it. Well, how does that make you feel? And we were like, actually, that's got a real hook to it. There's definitely something to work on. So we just scrapped everything and you know, produced this, and it's got a feel about it, as I say, we've never achieved before, and I'm so glad they pushed us into it, because it's a real highlight.
We've been playing 4 songs over the summer, and it's become linking back to what Ed just said. It's become almost a bit of a live favourite already, and the record's not out yet, so it's become quite a big song with the fans.
So it's clearly connecting because it has such a great tune, and obviously the hit makers Flood and Hillier, they can spot a tune. they know what's going to work. Excellent. And then in contrast, you take it down with the last track on the album, Walk the Fleet Road, and I know that you chose 9 songs for the record because these were the 9 that you thought worked best in this particular sequence, and also just there was no more needed. No. And I'm a big fan of short albums.
Okay.
I think they work really well, you know, and leaves the listener wanting more, and they help you return to a record more. Walk the Fleet Road is a nice way to kind of end it all. It's kind of a mellow thing. Is it specific? Is the Fleet Road a specific road?
It is, it's a place, it's a place, that inspired the song.
Whereabouts?
Not too far from where I live.
So somewhere
it's in North London somewhere.
In North London.
Yeah, and
A to Z's flapping around.
Well, it's not that close. But a lot of the songs on the record, like I said, are more observational, looking out at other people and other things, whereas this one would be the one on the record that I would say would be the most personal. It does feel like connected to me and somebody telling me to maybe not take things too seriously, calm down a bit. So that's what that song's kind of.
Okay. Is that a trait of yours then?
Absolutely.
Is that why editors make serious sounding music? And that people seem to respond? I mean, it's interesting, you were talking about the reactions to the record so far, and they really have been divided, haven't they? I mean, it's the most. I mean, I can understand people getting uptight about, you know, the sound-wise, it's completely changed direction, you know, and it's a different kind of sound to what you were doing before. In a way, that's the kind of thing that you think the fans would get uptight about. But people seem to have a really strong opinion of how they think editors should be making a record, which is it surprises me why they get so worked up about it. I don't really understand.
It's interesting. I quite like it. I mean, it's a lot, and the positive reviews have been, this is the best record they've ever made, a welcome change of what they've been doing, good work. Also by a lot of journalists that didn't like what we were doing before, interestingly. But the ones that don't like it are like out for blood. That's just brilliant. That's fine, isn't it, really? What can you say? You can't really say anything, everyone's got an opinion. There's so much opinion out there these days. It's just, with the internet, there is an enormous ocean of opinion. It's impossible to really take any of it seriously. You have to just, trust your instincts, and that's what we've done in making the record, and that's what I hope people listening to it do as well. Of course it's nice to get nice reviews, of course it's nice, but you take them all with a pinch of salt, the good and the bad.
One of the things that I've always liked about radio, and one of the reasons why I got involved in radio in the first place, was that you can play the music and let people decide for themselves, which is what it's all about. And it's been brilliant to have you here to give us this opportunity. Walk the Fleet Road is the last track tonight from Editors. Off on the road yourself for another year. I mean,
I would expect so.
Yeah.
Where are we now?
It's October now. When do you think
obviously, definitely through to the festivals next year.
Right, so a break in May for Ed to get married.
Yeah, a weekend off.
Yeah, weekend off.
Maybe just a day.
Yeah, just a day.
And then tea in the park.
Honeymoon on tour.
Excellent. I'm sure your fiancé will love that.
Oh, yeah.
We'll push the boat out. We'll give you your own room.
Oh, nice, thanks. All right. Deal.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great to have you here.
Much, John.
Thanks so much. This is the last track tonight from Editors, Walk the Fleet Road on Exposure XFM.